Ambassador Elena Vasquez sat in her office on Earth's orbital station, watching the blue planet turn slowly below. The morning had started like any other until the priority message arrived. The red warning light on her desk blinked with urgent persistence, and she knew this could only mean one thing. The Galactic Council wanted something. She pressed the activation key and watched as the hologram materialized. A tall, thin alien with 4 arms and skin like polished metal appeared before her. This was Zentar, the current Council Prime, leader of the most powerful alliance in known space. Ambassador Vasquez. Zentar's voice carried the usual tone of barely hidden contempt that most aliens used when speaking to humans. You are hereby summoned to appear before the full Galactic Council within 7 standard days. Humanity stands accused of violating the Technology Restriction Treaty of 2387. Elena kept her face calm, but inside her heart began to race. She had been waiting for this moment for 3 years, ever since Project Shadowfall had begun producing results. May I ask what specific violations you believe we have committed? She asked, knowing full well what they had detected. Zentar's 4 eyes narrowed. Our deep space sensors have detected massive energy signatures from your solar system. These readings are impossible with your current technology level. You will explain these anomalies to the Council, or face immediate sanctions. The hologram vanished, leaving Elena alone with her thoughts. She immediately activated her secure communication system and sent a coded message to Admiral Chen at the hidden military base on Pluto's dark side. The message was simple. The Council knows. Prepare for departure. Elena had been humanity's ambassador to the galaxy for 15 years. She had watched as alien species treated humans like children who had just learned to walk. The Technology Restriction Treaty was supposed to be for humanity's own protection, they claimed. Young species like humans were not ready for advanced weapons technology. They might hurt themselves or others, but Elena knew the truth. The treaty was about control. The 12 elder species that ruled the Galactic Council wanted to keep humanity weak. They gave humans just enough technology to be useful. Basic space travel, simple energy weapons, basic medical advances. But anything truly powerful was forbidden. For 50 years, humanity had followed these rules. They had been model citizens of the galaxy, accepting their place as the junior species. They traded raw materials and human labor for alien technology. They served as soldiers in the Council's border conflicts, using outdated plasma rifles while their alien commanders wielded energy weapons that could destroy entire cities. Elena remembered the turning point 3 years ago. Intelligence reports had revealed the Council's true plans for humanity. A massive war was coming. Ancient enemies called the Void Touched were gathering in dark space, beyond the edge of the galaxy. The Council was preparing for the largest military conflict in galactic history, and they intended to use humanity as cannon fodder. The reports had been clear. Humans would form the front lines of the Council's defense. They would charge into battle with inferior weapons, while the alien species stayed safely behind their force fields and defensive stations. The Council expected to lose millions of human soldiers, but they considered this acceptable. After all, humans bred quickly and were naturally aggressive. Perfect disposable troops. That was when President Martinez had authorized Project Shadowfall. If the Council wanted to treat humanity as expendable, then humanity would have to find its own path to survival. Elena walked to the secure elevator that led to the classified levels of the station. Her clearance allowed her access to areas that officially did not exist. She descended 50 levels below the public sections, past the diplomatic offices and trade centers, down to where humanity's real work was being done. The laboratory stretched out before her like something from a dream. Scientists and engineers worked at stations that hummed with barely contained energy. Dr. Sarah Chen, the Admiral's sister and the head of Project Shadowfall, looked up as Elena approached. I assume they detected the test last week, Dr. Chen said without looking up from her calculations. 7 days until I have to face the full Council, Elena replied. Are we ready? Dr. Chen smiled. Elena, we've been ready for 6 months. The Shadow Fleet has been waiting for orders. Elena nodded and walked to the observation window. Through the reinforced glass, she could see the testing chamber where humanity's greatest secret lay hidden. It looked empty to the naked eye. Just an enormous room filled with what appeared to be empty space. But Elena knew better. The dark matter manipulation drive was there, invisible and waiting. While the galaxy's greatest minds had spent thousands of years perfecting energy weapons and force fields, human scientists had taken a different path. They had learned to touch the invisible matter that made up most of the universe. Dark matter was everywhere, but no known species had ever successfully interacted with it. Most aliens considered it impossible. Their physics said it could not be done. Their mathematics proved it was beyond reach. But humans had always been good at proving the impossible was merely difficult. The breakthrough had come from an unexpected source. A young graduate student named Marcus Webb had been studying gravitational anomalies when he noticed something strange. The math showed that dark matter was not truly separate from normal matter. There were connection points, tiny bridges where the two types of matter could interact. The discovery had led to 3 years of intense research. Human scientists had worked in absolute secrecy, developing technology that existed partially in normal space and partially in dark space. They had built ships that could phase between dimensions, weapons that could manipulate gravity itself, and defensive systems that existed outside normal physics. The test that had alerted the Council had been necessary. They needed to know if the Shadow Fleet could actually function in real combat conditions. 12 battleships had decloaked simultaneously near Jupiter, their dark matter drives creating massive gravitational distortions. For exactly 30 seconds, they had existed fully in normal space, allowing their crews to verify all systems. It had been enough time for the Council's sensors to detect something impossible. Elena returned to her office to begin preparations for the journey to Nexus Prime, the Council's capital station. She would take the diplomatic transport, following all proper protocols. She would arrive as the humble representative of a junior species, ready to explain and apologize for humanity's mistakes. But the Shadow Fleet would arrive by a different route. As she packed her formal diplomatic robes, Elena thought about her daughter Maria, who was studying engineering at the University of New Geneva. Maria had no idea that her mother was about to change the course of galactic history. She had grown up in a universe where humans were second-class citizens, where alien species made the rules and humans followed them. That was about to end. Elena activated her personal communicator and sent a message to President Martinez. Package delivery confirmed for next week. The recipients will be very surprised. She looked out at the stars one last time before beginning her journey. Somewhere out there, beyond the edge of known space, the void touched were preparing for war. The Galactic Council thought they could use humanity as disposable soldiers in that conflict. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The next 7 days would change everything. The age of human submission was ending, and the age of human ascension was about to begin. Elena smiled as she closed her office door. The Council wanted an explanation for the energy signatures they had detected. She would give them one they would never forget. The journey to Nexus Prime took 6 days through hyperspace. Elena spent the time reviewing files and preparing her testimony. She knew that every word she spoke would be analyzed by billions of beings across the galaxy. More importantly, every word would be transmitted back to Earth, where Admiral Chen and the Shadow Fleet waited for her signal. Nexus Prime appeared on the view screen like a massive metal flower. The station was enormous, large enough to hold a small moon inside its central chamber. Thousands of ships from hundreds of different species moved in carefully controlled patterns around the station. This was the center of galactic civilization, the place where laws were made and justice was dispensed. Elena's transport docked at the human section, a small area reserved for junior species. The docking bay was cramped and poorly maintained compared to the grand terminals used by the elder races. Even here, the Council's attitude toward humanity was clear. She was met by a protocol droid that guided her through the station's corridors. The walls were lined with images showing the great achievements of galactic civilization. Elena saw pictures of the first hyperspace jump, the founding of the Council, the great wars against ancient enemies. Notably absent were any images of human achievements. The Council chamber was breathtaking. The dome stretched high above, its walls made of transparent metal that showed the stars beyond. 12 massive seats were arranged in a circle, each one designed for a different species. At the center was a smaller chair where accused parties were required to sit. Elena took her place and waited as the Council members arrived. Each entrance was a display of power and majesty, designed to intimidate those who stood before them. First came the Zephyrians, their crystalline bodies catching and reflecting light in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Their species had mastered energy manipulation millions of years ago. They considered themselves the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. The Nebulans arrived in their containment fields, their gaseous bodies crackling with electrical energy. They came from the gas giants near the galactic core and had never known solid ground. Their technology was based on electromagnetic manipulation and plasma control. The Korthans entered with heavy, measured steps. Their rock-like bodies were nearly indestructible, and their ships were built like moving mountains. They had been the military backbone of the Council for thousands of years. One by one, the other species took their places. The insectoid hive queen Zakath clicked and chittered as her countless drones arranged themselves around her seat. The photonic luminari flickered in patterns of pure light. The aquatic deepsworn brought tanks of their homeworld's water to sustain them during the proceedings. Finally, Council Prime Zentar of the Hegemony took his place at the highest seat. His species had founded the Galactic Council and had ruled it for over 1,000,000 years. His forearms moved in ritual gestures as he called the session to order. We gather today to address serious violations of galactic law. Zentar's voice echoed through the chamber. The species known as humanity stands accused of developing prohibited technologies in violation of the Technology Restriction Treaty. Elena stood as protocol demanded. Around her, hundreds of observers filled the gallery. Representatives from 847 different civilizations had come to watch humanity face judgment. She could feel their eyes upon her, most filled with curiosity, some with contempt, a few with what might have been sympathy. Ambassador Vasquez, Zentar continued, your species has been detected conducting experiments with forces beyond your technological level. Our sensors have recorded gravitational anomalies, space-time distortions, and energy signatures that should be impossible with human science. The evidence was displayed on massive screens around the chamber. Elena watched as the readings from last week's test were shown in detail. She had to admit the data was impressive. The gravitational distortions alone should have been impossible for a species that had only achieved hyperspace travel 50 years ago. Furthermore, the Zephyrian representative added, her crystalline voice ringing like wind chimes, intelligence reports suggest that humans have been conducting these experiments in secret for several years. This represents a deliberate violation of Council oversight. The Nebulan delegate's electrical field flared with agitation. The energy signatures detected could only come from exotic matter manipulation. Such technology is restricted to elder species who have proven their wisdom over millions of years. Elena listened to each accusation with calm attention. She noticed that several species seemed genuinely concerned, while others appeared to be enjoying the spectacle of humanity being called to account. The Hive Queen's chittering grew louder, and Elena's translation device picked up fragments. Dangerous mammals and should never have been admitted. The evidence is clear, declared the Korthan representative, his voice like grinding stone. Humanity has violated the most fundamental laws of galactic civilization. They have developed weapons technology in secret while claiming to abide by treaty restrictions. Elena waited for permission to speak. When it came, she stood slowly and looked around the chamber. This was the moment she had prepared for her entire career. Honored council members, she began, I do not deny that the energy signatures you detected came from human space. I do not deny that we have been conducting research that you consider advanced. What I question is your authority to restrict human scientific development. A murmur ran through the chamber. No junior species had ever challenged council authority so directly. The Technology Restriction Treaty was supposedly created for our protection, Elena continued. You claimed that young species like humanity needed guidance to avoid dangerous mistakes. But recent intelligence has revealed the true purpose of these restrictions. She activated her portable display unit, and new images appeared on the chamber's screens. These were classified council documents that human intelligence had obtained at great risk. These are your own internal communications, Elena said. They show that the council has been deliberately keeping humanity weak, not for our protection, but for your convenience. You plan to use human soldiers as disposable troops in your coming war against the Void Touched. The chamber erupted in noise. Several council members demanded to know how humanity had obtained classified documents. Others called for Elena's immediate arrest for espionage. Gentar raised his forearms for silence. Even if these documents are genuine, they do not give you the right to violate galactic law. The technology restriction treaty exists for good reasons. Does it? Elena asked. Your own scientists have stagnated for millions of years. You perfect the same technologies over and over, making energy weapons slightly more powerful, force fields slightly stronger. You have not had a true breakthrough in a million years. The Luminari representative flickered angrily. We have achieved perfection in our chosen fields. There is no need for radical innovation. That is exactly the problem, Elena replied. You have become so comfortable with your superiority that you cannot imagine someone else finding a better way. She looked directly at Zentar. You want to know what we discovered? We learned that your physics are incomplete. You have spent millions of years studying the small percentage of the universe made of normal matter, while ignoring the vast majority that exists in dark space. Impossible, the Zephyrian delegate chimed. Dark matter cannot be manipulated by any known technology. Elena smiled. By any known technology, yes, but human science took a different approach. While you perfected energy manipulation, we learned to touch the invisible forces that bind the universe together. The chamber fell silent. For the first time in the proceedings, Elena had their complete attention. The gravitational anomalies you detected were not weapons tests, she said. They were navigation exercises. Humanity has developed technology that allows us to exist partially in dark space, to manipulate gravity itself, to phase between dimensions. Zentar leaned forward in his seat. You are claiming that humanity has achieved what our greatest scientists consider impossible? I am not claiming it, Elena replied. I am stating it as fact. The Hive Queen's chittering reached a frenzied pitch. The Corthan delegates' rocky features shifted into what might have been surprise. Even the ancient Luminari dimmed their light patterns in what Elena recognized as shock. These are the desperate lies of a species facing punishment, Zentar declared. You cannot prove such outrageous claims. Elena reached into her diplomatic pouch and withdrew a small device. Actually, I can. She activated the device and space around Nexus Prime began to shimmer. The shimmer around Nexus Prime lasted only a moment, but every sensor in the system detected it. Council Prime Zentar's four eyes widened as his aide rushed to his side with urgent readings. Around the chamber, delegates checked their personal devices as their ships reported impossible gravitational fluctuations. What did you just do? Zentar demanded, his voice carrying a note of concern for the first time in the proceedings. Elena deactivated the device and returned it to her pouch. I sent a message to my superiors. Standard diplomatic protocol, as outlined in Section 47 of the Council Charter. The Zephyrian delegate's crystalline form pulsed with agitation. That was no standard communication burst. Our sensors detected gravitational manipulation on a massive scale. Yes, Elena replied calmly. Human communication technology has advanced considerably. The truth was far more significant than Elena let on. The device had been a beacon, a signal to the Shadow Fleet waiting in dark space around the system. Admiral Chen and his 12 battleships were now moving into position, their dark matter drives allowing them to approach completely undetected. Shentar conferred quietly with his advisors while the other council members discussed among themselves in their various languages. Elena could hear fragments of their conversations through her translation device. The word impossible appeared frequently, along with dangerous and unprecedented. When order was restored, Zentar's expression had hardened into something resembling anger mixed with fear. Ambassador Vasquez, the Council has reached a decision regarding humanity's violations. Elena remained standing, knowing that this moment would determine the future of both her species and the galaxy itself. The evidence of technological violations is overwhelming, Zentar continued. Regardless of your claims about dark matter manipulation, which we find highly dubious, humanity has clearly violated the Technology Restriction Treaty. The penalty for such violations is severe. The Corthan delegate stood, his massive form casting a shadow across the chamber floor. Humanity will immediately cease all research into advanced technologies. All facilities involved in these experiments will be surrendered to Council oversight for inspection and dismantling. The Nebulan representative's electrical field crackled as he added, all human military forces will be placed under direct Council command. Your species' aggressive tendencies make independent military development too dangerous to permit. Elena felt her heart rate increase, but kept her expression neutral. This was worse than they had expected. The Council was not just enforcing the treaty, they were preparing to completely subjugate humanity. Furthermore, the Hive Queen chittered. Her words translated into harsh mechanical syllables. Humanity will provide detailed technical specifications of all research conducted in violation of Council law. Any attempt to hide or destroy evidence will result in additional sanctions. The Luminari delegate flickered in patterns that Elena's device translated as cold formality. Human colonies will be limited to their current systems. No further expansion will be permitted until humanity proves it can be trusted with Council oversight. Xentar raised his primary arms for attention. The Council is prepared to show mercy, however. If humanity complies fully and immediately with these requirements, you will be allowed to maintain limited self-governance under Council supervision. Elena looked around the chamber at the faces of beings from across the galaxy. Some appeared satisfied with the harsh terms. Others seemed uncomfortable with the severity of the punishment. A few looked almost sympathetic, but none spoke in humanity's defense. "And if we refuse?" Elena asked, though she already knew the answer. "Refusal is not an option," Xentar replied coldly. "However, if humanity chooses to resist these lawful sanctions, the consequences will be severe. Complete economic isolation from galactic trade networks, withdrawal of all technological exchanges, prohibition from Council space." The Corthan delegates' rocky features shifted into what might have been satisfaction. "And if necessary, military enforcement of Council will. Humanity's primitive weapons would be no match for the combined fleets of the elder species." Elena thought of the millions of humans living on colony worlds that depended on galactic trade for survival. She thought of the medical technologies that kept thousands alive, the food shipments that fed growing populations, the raw materials that kept human industry functioning. She also thought of the classified reports she had read 3 years ago. The Council's plans for the coming war against the Void touched the projected casualty rates for human forces, the expectation that humanity would absorb the first devastating attacks while elder species mobilized their defenses. "You want to turn us into slaves," she said quietly. "We want to ensure galactic stability," Xentar corrected. "Young species must learn their place in the cosmic order. Your aggression and unpredictability make you dangerous. These restrictions are for the good of all civilizations." Elena nodded slowly as if considering the Council's terms. Around her, the assembled delegates waited for humanity's response. In the gallery, hundreds of observers from across the galaxy watched to see how the upstart species would react to judgment from their betters. "I need to consult with my government," Elena said. "This decision affects all of humanity. Surely the Council will grant me time to seek proper authorization." "You have 1 standard hour," Xentar declared. "The Council's patience is not unlimited. After that time, we will require your answer." Elena bowed formally and was escorted to a small chamber reserved for diplomatic consultations. The room was comfortable but clearly monitored. She activated her secure communicator and established a connection to Earth. President Martinez appeared on the screen, her expression grim. Behind her, Elena could see the crisis management team that had been assembled for this moment. "The terms are unacceptable," Martinez said without preamble. "Complete submission would mean the end of human independence. We might as well become a Council protectorate." "The alternative is war," Elena replied, "and according to their own estimates, they could destroy our current military forces within days." "What about Shadowfall? Are our people in position?" Elena glanced around the monitored room and chose her words carefully. "The delivery team is standing by. Package contents are fully operational and ready for demonstration." Martinez nodded, understanding. "Elena, you know what this means. Once we open that package, there's no going back. The galaxy will never be the same. Mr. President, they've given us no choice. They want to use us as cannon fodder in their war while keeping us permanently weak. This was always going to happen eventually." "I know." Martinez was quiet for a moment. "You have full authorization to proceed. Do what you think is best for humanity." The connection ended, leaving Elena alone with her thoughts. In 1 hour, she would return to the Council chamber and deliver humanity's response. She thought about her daughter Maria, about all the human children who deserved to grow up free. She thought about the colonies that would suffer if trade was cut off, and the humans who would die if war came. But mostly, she thought about Admiral Chen and the Shadow Fleet, waiting invisible in the dark space around Nexus Prime. Elena spent the remaining time reviewing the technical specifications one final time. The dark matter manipulation drive was humanity's greatest achievement, but it was also untested in real combat conditions. The simulations showed it would work, but simulations could be wrong. When the hour ended, she returned to the council chamber. The delegates had not moved from their positions, and the gallery remained full of observers. Centaur looked down at her with barely concealed impatience. Ambassador Vasquez, has humanity reached a decision regarding the council's terms? Elena stood in the center of the chamber and looked up at the beings who had ruled the galaxy for millions of years. They were ancient, powerful, and utterly convinced of their own superiority. They had never faced a real challenge to their authority. That was about to change. Council Prime Zentar. Honored delegates, she began formally. I have consulted with the government of the United Human Federation. We have carefully considered your terms and their implications for our species' future. The chamber was completely silent. Even the ever-present chittering of the Hive Queen had stopped. We respectfully decline. The explosion of noise was immediate and overwhelming. Delegates shouted in dozens of languages while their translation devices struggled to keep up. In the gallery, observers from across the galaxy reacted with shock, excitement, and fear. Shentar pounded his ceremonial staff against the floor until order was restored. His four eyes blazed with anger as he stared down at Elena. You dare refuse the will of the Galactic Council? No junior species has ever shown such arrogance. Elena remained calm despite the chaos around her. We are not refusing the Council's authority in galactic affairs. We are simply declining to surrender our independence and freedom. Then you have chosen war, the Corthan delegate rumbled. Council security forces will escort you to detention, while our fleets prepare to enforce compliance. Armed guards began moving toward Elena from around the chamber. She reached into her diplomatic pouch and activated the beacon device one final time. Actually, she said with a slight smile, I think you might want to check your sensors first. The silence that followed Elena's words was unlike anything the Galactic Council had ever experienced. For a moment that stretched into eternity, thousands of the galaxy's most powerful beings simply stared at the human ambassador, who had just told them to check their sensors. Then the alarms began. Every screen in the council chamber lit up with emergency readings. Gravitational distortions appeared on the tactical displays like massive wounds in space-time itself. Energy signatures that defied known physics blazed across sensor arrays. And most impossibly of all, 12 enormous shapes began to shimmer into existence around Nexus Prime, Council Prime. Zentar's four hands moved frantically across his control panel as his aide whispered urgent reports in his ear. The Zephyrian delegate's crystalline form lost its brilliant shine, dimming to a dull gray as she processed the sensor data. The Nebulan representative's electrical field flickered erratically, sparks of confusion dancing through his gaseous form. This is impossible, the Corthan delegate rumbled, his stone-like features shifting into an expression of disbelief. Our sensors show 12 massive objects, but they were not there moments ago. Elena watched the screens with satisfaction as the Shadow Fleet completed its transition from dark space to normal reality. Each battleship was a masterpiece of human engineering, their hulls gleaming with the strange shimmer that came from dark matter manipulation technology. The ships were enormous, each one larger than most council vessels, but their size was not what made them terrifying. It was the way they had appeared from nowhere, bypassing every defense, every sensor grid, every early warning system that protected the heart of galactic civilization. Attention Nexus Prime. Admiral Chen's voice echoed through the council chamber's communication system. This is Admiral James Chen of the United Human Space Force Shadow Fleet. We come in peace, but we come prepared. The Hive Queen's chittering reached a frenzied pitch as her translation device struggled to process her rapid speech. Impossible. No ships could approach without detection. Our defenses are perfect. Elena stepped forward, her voice carrying clearly in the stunned silence. Honored council members, may I present humanity's response to your ultimatum. While you have spent millions of years perfecting energy weapons and force shields, human science took a different path. On the main display, technical readouts from the human ships began appearing. The data made no sense according to conventional physics. Mass readings fluctuated wildly. Energy signatures appeared and disappeared. The ships seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Dark matter manipulation. Dr. Sarah Chen's voice joined the communication from the lead battleship. For 3 years, human scientists have been learning to interact with the invisible matter that comprises 85% of the universe. The luminary delegate flickered rapidly, their light patterns showing confusion and fear. Dark matter cannot be manipulated. Our greatest physicists proved this impossible millennia ago. Your physicists were looking at the problem from the wrong angle, Dr. Chen replied. They tried to force dark matter to behave like normal matter. We learned to work with its natural properties instead. Elena activated her portable display again, showing the technical principles behind humanity's breakthrough. The mathematics alone were enough to make several council members lean forward in their seats, their various forms of vision struggling to comprehend the equations. The key was understanding that dark matter and normal matter are not separate, Elena explained. They are connected by quantum bridges that exist at the subatomic level. Once we learned to detect these bridges, we could influence them. Admiral Chen's image appeared on the main screen, his weathered face showing both determination and regret. Council Prime Zentar, I want to be clear about what you are seeing. These 12 ships exist partially in normal space and partially in dark space. We can phase between dimensions at will. To demonstrate, one of the battleships flickered and became translucent. Sensor readings showed its mass dropping to nearly zero as it shifted into dark space. Then it solidified again, returning to full existence in normal reality. Furthermore, Admiral Chen continued, our weapon systems operate on the same principles. We can manipulate gravity, create localized space-time distortions, and generate forces that your current technology cannot defend against. The demonstration was subtle, but unmistakable. Space around Nexus Prime rippled slightly, and every being in the station felt a momentary shift in gravity. For just an instant, the massive council chamber experienced perfect weightlessness before normal conditions returned. Zentar finally found his voice. How long have you been developing this technology? 3 years of intensive research, Elena replied. But the theoretical foundations go back much further. Human scientists have been working on dark matter theory for over a century. Impossible, the Zephyrian delegate chimed, her crystalline voice cracking with strain. Our intelligence networks monitor all human research. We would have detected such advanced work, Elena smiled. Your intelligence networks monitor normal matter research. Dark matter experiments exist partially outside normal space. Unless you knew exactly what to look for, they would be completely invisible. The implications were staggering. If humanity could hide research facilities in dark space, then the Council's oversight was meaningless. Any species with this technology could develop weapons, conduct experiments, or build fleets without detection. The war against the void touched, the Nebulan delegate said suddenly, his electrical field pulsing with realization. You know about the coming conflict? We know everything, Admiral Chen confirmed. We know about your plans to use human soldiers as disposable troops. We know about the projected casualty rates. We know that you expect to sacrifice millions of human lives while keeping your own forces safely behind defensive lines. The chamber erupted again as delegates protested, denied, and demanded explanations, but their voices carried a note of desperation now. The balance of power had shifted so suddenly and completely that most could not yet comprehend what had happened. You speak of the void touched as if they are your enemies, Elena said when the noise died down, but they are entities from dark space. You cannot fight them with normal matter weapons any more than you could have detected our ships before today. The truth hit the Council like a physical blow. For millions of years, they had been preparing for a war using weapons that would be completely ineffective against dark space entities. Their energy cannons, plasma torpedoes, and force field generators might as well be toys against enemies that existed outside normal physics. But humanity can fight them, Dr. Chen added. Our dark matter manipulation technology allows us to interact with dark space entities on equal terms. We can touch them, hurt them, and destroy them. Zentar leaned back in his massive chair, his forearms hanging limply at his sides. You are saying that humanity is the only species capable of defending against the void-touched threat. We are saying that humanity is the only species with the tools to fight effectively in dark space, Elena corrected. Whether we choose to defend the galaxy depends entirely on how we are treated by its current rulers. The Corthan delegate's stone features cracked slightly as he processed this information. You would allow the galaxy to fall to the void touched unless we meet your demands? We would defend humanity and human interests, Admiral Chen replied firmly. As for the rest of the galaxy, That depends on whether the Council is willing to negotiate as equals rather than overlords. Elena looked around the chamber at the faces of beings who had ruled unchallenged for millions of years. Some showed anger, others fear, and a few had already moved to calculating acceptance. The age of Council supremacy was ending, and they all knew it. "The choice is yours," she said simply. "You can continue to treat humanity as a junior species to be controlled and exploited, in which case we will withdraw from Council space and defend ourselves against all threats, including the void touched if necessary." She paused, letting the implications sink in. "Or you can acknowledge that the galaxy has changed, that humanity is no longer the primitive species you once knew, that we have capabilities you need, and wisdom you have overlooked." The silence stretched on as the Council processed their new reality. Around Nexus Prime, 12 impossible ships waited in the darkness, their very existence proof that everything had changed. Finally, Zentar spoke. "What exactly are you proposing, Ambassador Vasquez?" Elena smiled. "A new treaty, a new relationship, a new understanding of humanity's place in the galaxy. The Galactic Council, supreme rulers of known space for millions of years, fell silent as they realized they were no longer the most powerful force in the universe. The demonstration began with surgical precision that would be remembered throughout galactic history. Admiral Chen's voice carried across all communication frequencies as he addressed not just the Council, but every ship, station, and listening post in the system. "Honored delegates and observers, what you are about to witness represents a fundamental shift in the balance of galactic power. These demonstrations are designed to educate, not to threaten. We want you to understand exactly what humanity has achieved. The first battleship to move was the Prometheus Unbound, named for the ancient human myth of stealing fire from the gods. Commander Sarah Torres had volunteered for this mission, knowing that her ship would be the first to prove that humanity's impossible technology actually worked. Beginning Phase 1 demonstration, Torres announced from the bridge of her vessel, transitioning to partial dark space overlap. On every screen in the Council chamber, sensor readings went wild as the Prometheus Unbound began to fade from normal space. The massive battleship became translucent, its hull shimmering like a mirage. Mass readings dropped to nearly zero, while the ship remained visible to the naked eye. "As you can see," Elena explained to the stunned Council, "our ships can exist in both normal space and dark space simultaneously. In this state, normal matter weapons cannot harm us. Energy beams pass through us like light through glass." To prove the point, one of the Council's automated defense platforms fired a test beam at the ghostly battleship. The energy passed harmlessly through the hull without causing any damage whatsoever. "However," Elena continued, "we can still affect normal space while in this state." The Prometheus Unbound fired a single pulse from its dark matter cannon. The beam struck an abandoned asteroid at the edge of the system, and the entire rock simply ceased to exist, not destroyed, not vaporized. It was removed from normal space entirely, leaving only empty vacuum where a kilometer-wide chunk of stone had been moments before. The silence in the Council chamber was deafening. Even the ever-present hum of life support systems seemed muted as thousands of beings processed what they had just witnessed. Phase 2 demonstration, Admiral Chen announced. "The Newton's Revenge will demonstrate gravitational manipulation." The second battleship moved closer to Nexus Prime, its approach causing every sensor in the system to register impossible readings. Captain Maria Santos had named her ship after the human scientist who had first described gravity, and she took pride in showing how far humanity had advanced beyond those early theories. "Beginning localized gravitational adjustment," Santos reported. What happened next defied everything the Council thought they knew about physics. The massive Nexus Prime station, home to billions of beings and supposedly anchored in space by the most advanced technology in the galaxy, began to gently rotate, not spin wildly or tumble out of control. Rotate slowly and gracefully, as if the laws of physics had temporarily changed their minds about how gravity should work. Every being on the station felt the shift as their personal gravity adjusted to maintain normal orientation. "We are manipulating the gravitational field around your station," Santos explained, "creating a localized pocket where gravity operates according to our specifications rather than natural law." The Corthan delegate, whose species prided themselves on their understanding of massive forces and planetary engineering, simply stared at his instruments in disbelief. The power requirements for such manipulation should be impossible. Where is the energy coming from? Dark matter, Dr. Chen's voice replied from the lead ship. We are not fighting against the universe's natural forces. We are borrowing power from the invisible matter that already exists everywhere around us. The Newton's revenge gently returned Nexus Prime to its normal orientation, the gravitational manipulation ending as smoothly as it had begun. But the message was clear. Humanity could make the galaxy's greatest stronghold dance in space like a toy. Phase 3, Admiral Chen continued. Internal manifestation. This demonstration required the most audacity. The Hermes Rising under Captain David Kim approached one of the supposedly impenetrable defensive barriers that surrounded Nexus Prime's inner core. Beginning dimensional phase transition, Kim announced. The Council watched in growing horror as the human battleship simply passed through their defensive grid as if it did not exist. Energy barriers that could stop planet-cracking weapons were useless against a vessel that existed partially outside normal space. The Hermes Rising materialized inside the defensive perimeter, its massive bulk suddenly appearing where sensors insisted nothing could possibly be. Every automated defense system in the area registered the presence of a hostile vessel in a supposedly secure zone, but none could lock onto a target that flickered between dimensions. As you can see, Elena said calmly, your defensive systems are designed to stop attacks that follow the rules of normal physics. They are ineffective against technology that operates outside those rules. Captain Kim guided his ship in a slow, peaceful orbit around the inner defensive grid before phasing back out to rejoin the main fleet. The demonstration was complete, but its implications would be discussed in military academies for generations to come. Gentar finally broke the stunned silence. You have made your point, Ambassador. Humanity possesses technology that makes our current defenses obsolete. More than that, Elena replied. We possess the only technology capable of fighting the void-touched effectively. Your energy weapons and force fields are useless against entities from dark space. Only dark matter manipulation can touch them. The truth of this statement hung heavy in the air. Every being in the chamber understood the implications. The coming war against the void-touched would be fought on humanity's terms, with humanity's weapons, and under humanity's leadership. The luminary delegate flickered in patterns that Elena's translator interpreted as desperate curiosity. Would humanity be willing to share this technology with the Council races? That depends, Admiral Chen answered, on whether the Council is willing to treat humanity as an equal partner rather than a subject species. Elena stepped forward, addressing the full assembly. The Technology Restriction Treaty is void. Humanity will not submit to oversight or limitations on our scientific development. We will not serve as cannon fodder in your wars. We will not accept second-class status in galactic civilization. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of beings who had ruled the galaxy for millions of years. However, we are willing to form new partnerships based on mutual respect and benefit. The void-touched threaten all life in this galaxy, not just human life. We propose a new alliance, one where humanity leads the military response while our Council partners contribute their own strengths. The Zephyrian delegate's crystalline form began to pulse with renewed light. What guarantees do we have that humanity will not use this technology to conquer the galaxy? Elena smiled. The same guarantee we have always had with any species: mutual benefit and mutual deterrence. The difference is that now humanity has the power to enforce its own interests rather than relying on Council mercy. The age of Council supremacy is ending, Admiral Chen added from the main screen. But the age of galactic cooperation can begin. The choice is yours. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Delegates argued, protested, and gradually came to terms with their new reality. Some species welcomed the change, having chafed under Council restrictions for millennia. Others resisted until the very end, unable to accept that their dominance was over. In the end, pragmatism won. The void-touched were coming, and only humanity could fight them effectively. A new treaty was drafted, one that recognized humanity as the galaxy's premier military power, while maintaining the Council's role in civilian governance and interspecies relations. As Elena signed the historic document, she thought about her daughter Maria, who would grow up in a galaxy where humans were respected as equals. She thought about the colonies that would no longer depend on alien mercy for survival. She thought about the war that was coming and the billions of lives that would depend on humanity's dark matter battleships. Outside Nexus Prime, the Shadow Fleet maintained its position, visible proof that everything had changed. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had stepped out of the shadows and taken its place among the stars as an equal. The Council had fallen silent that day, but from that silence, a new galaxy would emerge. One where the invisible forces that bound the universe together served not alien masters, but human dreams of freedom among the stars. Admiral Chen's final transmission echoed through space as the fleet prepared to return to Earth. This is Admiral Chen to all human forces. Mission accomplished. We are no longer the junior species. We are no longer subjects of the Council. We are equals among the stars, and the galaxy will know it. In the depths of dark space, ancient entities stirred as they sensed the new power that had emerged in the galaxy. The void-touched were coming, but they would find a very different universe than the one they had left behind. Humanity was ready for war, and the darkness itself had become their ally.